Hey everybody, this is Gaynor Meilke, and this is the Conscious Success Plan where we're upskilling for life. And life in our model stands for love, identity, family, and enterprise. So we touch on all of those things through the lens of having a more successful life and whatever success means to you, but approaching it consciously so that we are aware of our own impact and our own reactions to the impact of others in our world. And I today wanted to talk about the idea of the severity of differences. And I was thinking about this as I was meditating today at the pool. I like to do my meditation in the pool or walking and thinking about where the pain in our lives comes from. And Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, and that's the feelings inside that often lead to our feelings on the outside that we share. And one of the thoughts I had about my own life was just the severity of difference between both my internal intelligence as a child and then also the severity of difference and the severe difference between my idealistic illusions of my adult self and what I thought was going to come to fruition. And when that doesn't, and it's a severe difference, that's really where you can have some pretty significant pain. Now, going back to the severity of the difference between the internal intelligence of a child, because children are born with kind of a preset and, in my opinion, perfect nervous system and viewpoint, they're expecting to get certain things from their parents because they're human being children. They're not, they're just like we would see in any other animal where they learn based on experience how their nervous system is going to react. And so when there's a severe difference between what will help keep that nervous system regulated because of the outside world, that is when we start to see, you know, the protective behaviors pile up until when you're an adult, if you've had to pile up these protective behaviors and thoughts that drive the behaviors, that's when we start to see these splits happen in people between what their true self was and what the self that they show up with is. And Esther Perel, who is a well-known psychologist, was talking about the idea that anybody who actually has an authentic and true self is betraying others and their version of you because they probably have a different version than your true self based on what they're putting on you. So I thought that was a really interesting idea between the pain that we feel internally because we have a split between our internal intelligence because we've had to create behaviors that obscure it in order basically to betray ourselves so that we don't betray others. And when you start to think about it like that, takes on a whole different depth and weight this idea of having conscious success in the world. And it's, I'm a trained conscious life coach and conscious parenting coach with Dr. Shafali, who has the Conscious Coaching Institute. And she said at the beginning of it, consciousness can be a bit of a bitch because once you take the rock away from the light in the cave, you're never going to unsee that light. And for some people, they never move the rock. And for some people, they prefer to keep the rock and be in the dark and live their lives that way. But for me, as a child, the pain of the severe difference between my internal intelligence of knowing what I was exposed to was not healthy, created such a pain body that I could not um, find the light because of my situation. And so, that's a bit of a deep dive today, and it really does cross over the identity piece pretty fully when you think about this the severity of the difference between what your internal intelligence is, what your truth is, as people call it, versus your experience in the world and with people at different stages of your life. Um, and I know with the idea of this pain body that's created as we layer more and more things from the outside and our reactions to them over our truth, that also comes from culture and it comes from conditioning of the people around us. Um, and having a difference like that builds up over time, and that's where we find that we have friction as well. So that's kind of a very interesting insight that I had today. And I wrote down after I did my meditation, and maybe this is something that will resonate with you on the identity piece, is there's a severe difference when we have an idealistic illusion of society and culture, and we no longer can tolerate holding up to that illusion for the people that it serves, and the truth as stated in facts and your feelings about it. So that's where we have a lot of fear, because we, as a human species, need connection and we don't want to lose that. And then, when we're forced to silence our truth, you know, uh, we either suffer negative psychological, emotional, and physical consequences, or we risk losing somebody that we think that we might need. So that creates that split as well. And also, when people are not living in a way that's congruent with our illusion of what should be, that creates cognitive dissonance that we try to close in different ways. So that's a lot to think about in a short amount of time. So I hope that you found this on the identity piece and the kind of the split that often happens between choosing to abandon others and their expectations of you versus abandoning the self. And that can become quite a negative split. So we need to be able to identify that and then also address it. And that's where either coaching or therapy can help. Also, journaling and really getting in touch with what your truth is, and then how you want to navigate with that as your compass in the world if you want to live a more conscious life. If you don't, then you don't need to do any of these things and continue to live in the dark, but you will likely not achieve all that you could have when you're actually operating fully and with awareness, with your eyes wide open to your own truth and what the actual um, impact and intention of the people around you and yourself are in the world.